It's 6 p.m. on a brand new week here in Korea. I'm Daniel Che. Welcome to our newscast. Let us begin with the headlines. In a meeting with the new leaders of the nation's political parties Monday, President Park Geun-hye emphasized the importance of unity in tackling the security challenges posed by North Korea's growing threats. North Korea appears ready to conduct another nuclear test at any given moment. Seoul and Washington have detected signs that preparations are complete at the test site. South Korean stocks plunged more than 2%, the biggest loss since June. Key factors: Samsung's smartphone recall, worries over interest rates, and the North's nuke test. Let's begin at the nation's top office. President Park Geun-hye sat down with party leaders for the first time since the 20th National Assembly kicked off. At the meeting, the president called for united efforts to counter North Korea's nuclear threats and reiterated the need to press the regime with stronger international sanctions. Song Ji-sun has our top story.
For nearly 2 hours, President Park and the party leaders exchanged views on current issues with a focus on the nation's security conditions. President Park underscored Pyongyang's mad obsession with its nuclear weapons, noting that its latest nuclear test was conducted just a day after the international community adopted a statement at the East Asia Summit in Laos. Park asked for unity in parliament, pointing to the uncertainties facing the nation on the security and economic fronts.
마음으로 다른 모습을 보이는 게 중요하다고 생각을 합니다. 오늘 회동을 계기로 해서 이런 안보에 대한 불안에 대해서 국민들의 걱정을 덜어드릴 수 있고 또 북한에 대해서도 좀 경각심을 갖는 그런 어떤 문제에 이해를 하는 데 강력한 의지가 담긴 그런 회동이 됐습니다.
Park said the North's nuclear weapons are not just for making idle threats or for negotiating purposes, as the regime has now said the warheads can be mounted on its ballistic missiles. Park said Seoul must enhance its military capabilities to counter North Korean provocations. Those capabilities would include the U.S. nuclear umbrella and deploying the U.S. missile defense system THAAD to South Korea as a means of self-defense. Park also indicated that the UN Security Council is discussing new sanctions, the strongest to date, to close the loopholes in its previous resolutions. Stressing that the security situation South Korea is facing at the moment is different from the past, Park called for a firm unity beyond political parties for the nation and the people's safety, as the North's additional provocations could mean a risk of war on the Korean peninsula. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
And now let's go over to our parliamentary correspondent Park Jie-won for some of the responses from the lawmakers at the National Assembly. Ji-won, how have the three political parties evaluated that meeting?
Good evening, Daniel. The ruling Centrist Party and the main opposition Minju Party of Korea are holding their press briefings as we speak. The minor opposition People's Party's interim leader Park Jie-won finished his briefing about an hour ago, saying his party is pretty satisfied to have an opportunity for the opposition leaders to discuss various issues with the president. But he made it clear that the presidential office and the opposition parties do not see eye to eye on two important matters. First is the U.S. missile defense THAAD system, while President Park reiterated the need to deploy it on South Korean soil. The interim leader said his party is against it, saying more discussion is needed in parliament. And the other matter is how to approach North Korea. While the two liberal-leaning parties have strongly denounced Pyongyang for its nuclear test, they stressed that sanctions on the North should be combined with dialogue, while the presidential office is focused on international sanctions. Well, that's it for I have for now, and I will bring you more updates in our later newscast. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, that was our Park Jie-won. Thank you for those updates. Moving on, the world is still processing the implications of North Korea's fifth nuclear test. But there's already speculation Pyongyang could conduct yet another one before the year is up. Connie Kim tells us more.
As if North Korea's fifth nuclear test and its second this year wasn't a big surprise to the international community, Pyongyang appears to be ready to push the button for another test at any time. Seoul's defense ministry confirmed that view on Monday.
The assessment by South Korean and U.S. intelligence in regard to an additional nuclear test by North Korea is that the North is always ready to test another device in the Punggye-ri area.
The spokesman said the nuclear test could be conducted at the second tunnel or the third one, which has not yet been used. The previous 5 nuclear tests have been carried out at the first and second underground tunnels. The South Korean and the U.S. military authorities have reportedly detected signs that preparations are complete at the third tunnel. Pyongyang's 5th nuclear test came suddenly last Friday without prior notice. But before the detonation, there have been reports of increased movements at the site, though there were no signs of transporting nuclear warheads or installing instrumentation. The South Korean and the U.S. military authorities have increased surveillance of the area to respond to any sudden movements. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington's representatives to the six-party talks are expected to meet this weekend to discuss their response to Pyongyang's latest nuclear test. Washington's special nuclear envoy Sung Kim will be in Seoul Monday evening for a 2-day stay. He'll meet with his South Korean counterpart Kim Hong-kyun on Tuesday. According to a government official, they're expected to discuss the possibility of additional sanctions on Pyongyang on a bilateral as well as the UN level. Over the weekend, Sung Kim met with his Japanese counterpart on the same issue, discussing ways to put pressure on the North through a 3-way framework, including South Korea. The nation's finance chief, Yoo Il-ho, called for close monitoring of financial markets. This comes as the nation faces many uncertainties, both home and abroad. Kim Min-ji shares with us the finance chief's remarks.
South Korea's finance minister has called for close monitoring of the local financial market following North Korea's latest provocation. Speaking at a meeting with top finance officials, Minister Yoo Il-ho said Pyongyang's nuclear test last week, coupled with both internal and external uncertainties, including a possible U.S. rate hike, could increase market volatility. Minister Yoo urged the utmost vigilance and called on the officials to draw up contingency plans that can be implemented if certain trends are detected. The minister also stressed the importance of putting to work at least 70% of the government's supplementary budget before Korea's Thanksgiving holiday or Chuseok, which falls on Thursday. In June, the government announced an extra budget worth roughly $10 billion to provide a cushion to the economy during the government's ongoing push for corporate restructuring, as well as to boost job creation. Regarding the logistics chaos triggered by Hanjin Shipping's slide into court-led restructuring, Minister Yoo called for careful management so that the crisis does not take a toll on the local economy. Korea's Oceans and Fisheries Ministry says more than 50 ships belonging to Hanjin are facing operational disruptions, with the majority standing by in the high seas. Minister Yoo called for interagency cooperation to keep close tabs on the situation on a daily basis and asked the necessary measures be drawn up. Although the minister noted the concerns over the possible negative impact, he said Hanjin's restructuring must go ahead as planned to bolster the competitiveness of the shipping industry. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Local shares plunged on Monday amid a slump in the local shipping industry. The Korean exchange was quick to react, pledging to enhance market monitoring. Park Jie-won looks beyond the numbers.
Korea's benchmark Kospi was down over 2%, closing at slightly above 1,991 on Monday, below the crucial 2,000 mark. Local shares were dragged down by uncertainties stemming from abroad, like a possible rate hike from the U.S. Federal Reserve, and disappointment over the ECB meeting last week, which failed to produce any new stimulus measures. But the biggest weight on the Kospi was Samsung Electronics. The company's stocks dropped nearly 7% on Monday on the global recall of its newest smartphone, the Galaxy Note 7, over reports of its battery exploding or catching fire. Samsung Electronics, the world's largest smartphone and television maker, accounts for almost 1/5 of the Kospi's overall capitalization. Though their impact was limited, geopolitical risks due to North Korea's 5th nuclear test also spooked investors. The sharp drop prompted the Korea exchange to hold an emergency meeting where officials discussed measures to tackle the drastic shift downward. They pledged to strengthen market monitoring to prevent any speculative movements. Park Jie-won, Arirang News.
Korea saw its biggest trade deficit on record in the first half of the year in transport-related activities. Outgoing payments for transport of people and goods by air and sea outpaced incoming ones by over $1 billion. Oh Jung-hee updates us on the ripples caused by the slumping shipping industry.
Korea's transport sector posted a deficit of over $1 billion in the first 7 months of the year due to sluggish global demand and falling exports. Bank of Korea data released on Monday shows the sector's income from January to the end of July was $15 billion, while outgoings were over $16 billion. This marks the first time the sector has posted a deficit in a half-year period since related records were first compiled in 2006. By subsector, the country's shipping industry saw the largest deficit of $894 million, with its cargo transport income tumbling over 28% compared to the same period last year. According to the Korea Customs Service on Monday, Korea's exports for the first 10 days of September declined 3.6%. In August, Korea's exports rebounded after falling for 19 straight months. The disappointing September figures come as cargo volumes and fares decreased as sluggish economic growth in China, Europe, and Japan eroded overseas demand. Experts say the deficit and sluggish exports may continue for a while, considering Korea's biggest shipping firm, Hanjin Shipping, is in dire financial straits after filing for court receivership 2 weeks ago. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Korea's exports of information and communications-related products seem to be headed for a recovery. According to the Trade Ministry, ICT through exports in August fell 2.1% from a year earlier for a total of $14 billion. It's a smaller decline than July, when the drop was nearly 7%. The improvement was attributed to a 2.5% rise in shipments of semiconductors and a smaller dip in exports of displays. Meanwhile, imports of ICT products also fell a fraction of a percent for a total of $7.5 billion, making an ICT trade surplus for August $6.6 billion. Over in the United States political arena, as one of the two runners of the November presidential election seems to have been diagnosed with pneumonia, at a ceremony event held in New York, Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton was seen shaky after what her campaign said was a case of overheating and dehydration. Shin Se-min has the details.
Questions over the health of U.S. Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton are rising again after the former Secretary of State seemed to be collapsing during a 9/11 memorial service in New York on Sunday. A video posted on social media showed Clinton leaving the memorial event early from ground zero, then stumbling and losing her balance before aides around her helped her get into a vehicle. A spokesperson for Clinton's campaign said she was overheated and dehydrated during the ceremony. She then went to her daughter Chelsea's apartment, leaving the place hours after the incident and stating she felt great while waving at reporters and the public.
It's a beautiful day in New York. Are you alive?
On the same day, Clinton's doctor released a statement saying she has been diagnosed with pneumonia on Friday. Quote, Hillary was put on antibiotics and was advised to rest and modify her schedule. Although her doctor says she's recovering well, this isn't the first health scare that the 68-year-old Democratic nominee has experienced. During a Labor Day campaign rally in Cleveland, Ohio, she had a massive coughing fit. And Sunday's incident has served to fuel for more attacks from her Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump.
She will not be a good president. She doesn't have the strength. She doesn't have the stamina.
With the first presidential debate scheduled to take place on later this month, and as early voters begin heading to the polls, Clinton's health concerns seem to be influencing strategies from both campaigns in an already tight race. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to Southeast Asia now, authorities in Singapore and Thailand have reported more than 24 new cases of the Zika virus transmitted locally. Singapore's health ministry announced 11 cases on Sunday, bringing the city-state's tally to 329. 8 of them are pregnant women. Of the 21 newly confirmed Zika patients in Thailand, One woman later gave birth to a child, though the newborn had none of the birth defects associated with the disease. Earlier this month, researchers found it is likely the Zika virus circulating in Southeast Asia is not the same as the strain that originated in Brazil and may not cause the same birth defects, which includes a smaller head and brain. Over many decades, locals there may have also developed an immunity to that disease. These are the stories we're following at this hour. For more updates, do tune in at 10 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.